Good morning. It's a new day and I'm highly energized after a good night's sleep, and I don't sleep well every night, but I certainly did last night, so I'm raring to go. So let's pick up where I left off yesterday, even though it may not be a new day if these the way I edit these videos, but there are the filled holes. Now, I never did use this hole. Again, what that was for, if I had misalignment, I could put this in the lathe chuck like this and face it off, and the reason I went all the way through is just to give it more stability, because holding it with a 1/8 inch rod, there's a tremendous tendency for it to chatter because that just isn't very firm. So that's why I went all the way through. Again, that was optional, and in this case it was a total waste, because as I put my flashlight here, but because I can't show it to you when I hold it overhead, but normally I look at the fluorescent light over me, but shining light through here, if you can see any light as you turn it around, then you have bad alignment. Something has to be done. It probably will still run, because these engines are absolutely bulletproof. Even if your workmanship is a little shoddy, or it's your first try and you're having problems with it, which some of you might have. But anyway, that's what that was for. So I'll just take the American-made channel lock pliers, and I'm told it's one of the very last American-made tools. With the blue handle, you see them everywhere. I got quite a few different models, and I like them. Okay, and you can see the excess Loctite there. I'm going to take this over to the belt sander, and it'll just take 5 seconds and clean that off. Then I am ready to start assembly. Almost can't see it, and if you paint this you really won't see it. And you can break some of the other corners on your belt sander if you got one. Just enough to break them, or to round them a little bit if you want that appearance. Now, as you assemble your engine, make sure that you clean it thoroughly and then oil it. And I already cleaned the bore with a piece of paper towel with brake fluid on it to make sure there wasn't any Loctite in there. And I put a little bit of oil here, or if you got any of that assembly grease, and I do not, that would be good too. And in other words, lubricate every moving part. There we go. And a little Earl there, and the main bearing was oiled a long time ago. I cut the spring off so it's about 1 inch long. A ballpoint pen spring will work also, you know. And I really need a little washer here, and probably double nuts. But for now I'm just putting on 1/540 nut, and bring that up to where you think you need it, and that's trial and error. And you can even tighten and loosen this while the engine is running. And it runs freely. Again, if you have tight spots, you need to address them, and there are many reasons for a tight spot. You know, it could be the bore, or the crank pin here could be ever so slightly crooked, and just different things will cause binding. Now I'm going to mount it on that temporary base and start the compressor and let that build up, because it's so terribly noisy. There's my air regulator in the vise, and it's in the off position, and I got 1/8 inch vinyl tubing running to the engine, and it doesn't matter which side you run it into, because that just changes the direction of rotation. And now, I did not run this engine yet, so this is the first time. I swear I did not put pressure to it yet, and I'm going to do that right now, and then give it a spin and we'll see if it runs. And normally they do the first time. That's why I'm showing you this, that these are bulletproof little engines that have great simplicity. So now, of course, when an engine is on top dead center or bottom dead center, you know, they are not self-starting in a one cylinder, and especially single acting. So, you know, it needs to be in the middle there someplace. So I'm turning the air on right now. It's on, and there it is. The pressure is 5 psi, and you see it started first time, and you just have to take my word for it that, you know, I did not test it. Not that that's important. You know, I just realized I think that was a prideful thing I said, so cancel that out. But I was reading a story. I know I've been talking a lot in my classic car magazine, which I happen to like, and there's a feature in there called I Was There, and they are men that are talking about their experiences in Detroit and the auto factory. But one man's job was to start the engines up for the first time in a room. The V8 engines, this was the late 50s, they were brought in, they were mounted, temporary water was run to them, and electrical and exhaust and all that stuff they needed to start them up, and they put oil in them and started them up. And he said in the several years that he worked in that department, he never saw a V8 fail to start. They started every time for the first time. And I think some small engines that they make never are started. They're just shipped because they know they're going to, if they have done everything right and every step correct along the line, and they make various tests along the line too, in sub-assemblies and that, they always run, they always start. Now there may be other defects that they run into as they test them. Okay. And there it is, running. And of course, to reverse it, just reverse the very little air coming out of there, just a few pounds. There it goes in the other direction. And I'm going to crank it up a little higher here. That's 10 pounds. And she's really booking. Now I need to make a little bit better base than this 3/4 pine. And it needs to be painted, but I don't like to paint anymore, so a lot of my engines are just raw. I really like to run them slow, not fast. And these can be run on real steam. Now, just one word of caution. I'm not totally sure if steam at 100 degrees Celsius will cause the Loctite to come loose. I really don't know that because I haven't done it. Now, what can be done to improve the appearance of the engine if you don't like the looks of this? Because it does look like a bar stock engine, I know that. But the flywheel, rather than just being plain, could be machined a little bit like this to give it some visual interest. And it's flat on the other side, but you could do it to both sides. The cylinder itself could be rounded greatly, because you got quite a bit of material to do that, and that could be done either on the belt sander or some kind of rounding tool on the milling machine. The crank here could be sculpted a little bit more like this one, which to me looks a little better. And you can do a lot with a base. And you know, the more lines you have, the prettier a base is. So to me, with you know, we got one line here, and we got a line here, and a line here, if that's what you want to call it. But that gives it some dimension, even when you compare it to to this one, which has one less line there. So you can change the appearance, and that depends on how artistic you are. An old TUBALCAIN, I must admit, is not very artistic. But there you have it. 1/2-inch bore, about 5/8 stroke, and about $1 worth of materials. But $10,000 worth of machinery to do it. And I'm thankful for what I have here in my basement shop. And some of you out there in YouTube land, even if you never make one of these, I hope that you had some enjoyment out of this vicariously. You know, I was looking for a base or a plinth to put these on, and I just remembered something that I had in the other room. And here's an engine I made a long time ago, and that's on a similar type base. But you know where these came from? My wife collects porcelain birds, or glass birds, or resin birds, or whatever they are. She has quite a lot of them. But some of these that she bought several years back sat on these, and they just sat there with gravity. They weren't glued down in any way, and she has so many birds that I was looking through them, and well, to be honest with you, I absconded with a couple of these, and you know what? She hasn't missed them either, unless she watches this video, but she never does watch my videos. But anyway, and you know what? I have a wonderful wife. I know I say a lot of things in jest, but I'm having fun. And she doesn't really pay too much attention to what I'm doing down here. However, she was down here a little earlier, brought me a cup of coffee, and she says, "You know what? I was wondering where that red towel went. I've been looking for that." And then she promptly left. And she didn't take the towel with her. Well, anyway, I mounted that on there, and I forgot that I had these screws here. And I probably own a couple dozen of these boxes of screws and various things like you see in a hardware store. I never have used any of these. There's a row of brass and there's a row of steel. And I even got the rack, like at the hardware store, where about 4 or 5 of these go in the rack. And nobody uses wood screws anymore, including myself. And I bought this whole rack here, for $3 or something, and another rack that had nuts and jam nuts and lock nuts and all kinds of other neat stuff. Anyway, got a little carried away there again. I have been getting carried away. So there's the engine mounted on a base. Now you're going to say all it lacks now is a couple coats of paint, and you're right. And then in the last few minutes I also put just this little recess onto the flywheel, which I think gives a little more character. I might be wrong. I didn't go very deep because I was in a hurry. I don't know why I was in a hurry. And this little extra shaft that sticks out could also be used to put a little pulley on, which you see on some toy engines, to drive some little device, whatever may be. And I will double nut this, I said that already, or put some kind of decorative nut on there. And usually those decorative nuts are from electrical components, back when they used to go to the extra effort of making a knurled brass or nickel plated nut, and I had to rethread that. I might have one more of those in a drawer if I dig around. I do have a lot of stuff here in the shop. As an addendum to this video, I decided to run the little oscillator on live steam rather than air. So I've hooked it up to my boiler, and you might have seen this in several of my other videos. And it's propane fired with a little burner underneath. And there's the steam outlet, copper, and then going into a heavy-duty hose over to the engine. Now, if you look at the top here, I do have a gauge, so I'm waiting for it to come up to pressure, and the burner is on at the moment. There is a little pop-off valve right here that is set at 10 psi, so I never run this at high pressure because this engine's going to run at about 3 pounds of steam. and there's a shut-off valve so that when this thing starts percolating, I just open the valve. Now initially when I do that, there will be a great deal of condensation as the steam comes into a cold engine and condenses. So there'll be water all over the place and it'll be spitting like crazy to start with. Then it'll settle down and hopefully run smoothly. So while I'm waiting for it to get up to steam, I move the propane bottle a little bit away from it because I don't like that so near the flame. And we'll see how she runs. And I know that it will run. You know, if it ran on air, it's certainly going to run even better on steam because steam expands greatly. The pressure is rising, so I'm going to turn it on and see what we got. I'm dumping the condensation off of it, and it looks like the pop-off valve is going to pop here because it's not using very much steam. I had a little trouble. I had too much steam coming out. I did wear gloves just because I'm a, well, I guess I'm a sissy, but I don't want to get scalded. Plus all of the metal gets quite hot. I might turn the flame down or off because I'm at a full 10 pounds now, so I expect this thing to pop off presently. I can control it somewhat by turning the flame down. Also with steam, you can see that there is some leakage right here, which is very typical of an oscillating engine between those surfaces. That you won't see that, of course, with air. Sometimes with compressed air you can feel that, but you can see it with steam. And the valve just blew off. Did you hear it? And that dropped it by a couple pounds. Alright, I think that's enough of that. Just wanted to show you what it was like under live steam, and you can see it's kind of a mess with the water. That's why some of those little toy engines have a pan under them to collect the condensation. I have the engine setting on top of one of my mini toolboxes, and just checking out how slowly it runs and giving you a last view of it. Now, if there is a great interest in this, that is, if I get 10,000 or more views and a lot of comments where people want it, I would make a drawing, a measured drawing for people to make this or a similar one, because you can make variations of it. But I don't want to do that unless there's a great interest in it, because I do not enjoy making drawings. Because I don't usually work with drawings for my simple projects like this. But there it is. A little wobbler or oscillating engine, as we call them. This one runs pretty slowly for a single acting. Now I may make another video eventually, if there's enough interest, also on a double acting. Runs pretty slowly, but probably much slower than this. It's going to stall. Also, my air pressure is going down because my compressor does not hold air very well. Let me know if you like this, and this is a long video and will be in at least 4 or 5 parts. Be sure and watch my hundreds of other videos where I show other engines and other machining techniques and other things that are of interest to people like you. This is TUBALCAIN saying so long for now.